The Long Road by Wolfland. Staring dumbfounded at the scoreboard for a moment longer, his gaze trailed back to the battlefield, where Sableye was laying flat on its back, out cold. Armaldo made a happy noise and gently headbutted his chest again, and finally it all sank in and left him a bit lightheaded. He couldn't keep his relieved laughter from bubbling forth, but it was short-lived as he spotted Glacia marching towards him with a protective arm wrapped around Phoebe's shoulders. The younger elite was shaking as she walked, and Steven could see the remnants of tears that had streaked down her face.
"I swear, this has never happened before, Miss Glacia!"
The Ice-type specialist said nothing, offering instead a subtle squeeze of Phoebe's arm, and Steven swore Glacia looked even paler than she had when they first met. But when the pair arrived at where he and Iona stood, Glacia's attention was trained on her own ghost type. Frostlass met her trainer's gaze and gave a silent nod, eliciting a quiet, "Thank God," to slip out under Glacia's breath. With a reassuring, albeit thin, smile, the tension in her stance melted, and she gently nudged Phoebe forward. "Go ahead. It's all going to be okay." No longer being guided by Glacia's hand, Phoebe turned and found Steven staring at her with what he was sure was a jumble of emotions. Her eyes went wide, and she nearly burst into tears again.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. What they did, I did to you and your Pokemon."
Steven could only blink in quiet confusion. Too many questions tumbling in his head to even get one out. Glacia's lips were pressed thin, and she shook her head before offering the explanation she knew Steven was searching for. What Phoebe is trying to say is that she is a gifted trainer when it comes to communing with ghost-type Pokemon. She is strong in her own right, but she is also here under our tutelage. Phoebe nodded, fearful eyes still locked onto Steven. Glacia's tone softened as she continued. "Phoebe is from Mount Pier, a place where the spirit energy of ghosts and psychics is strong. Ever since she was young, she had a special talent for being able to communicate with ghost-type Pokemon. But as she grew older, her abilities became more and more erratic. Phoebe's grandmother asked the League if we could take her in and teach her how to control them."
"I just got so flustered. I don't know what happened,"
Phoebe blurted out. But then her gaze fell, and her shoulders sagged, making her shrink even smaller beneath Glacia's arm.
"I try to be positive all the time, since ghosts feed on negativity, and I think I got so nervous when we were battling. This was only my third battle, since Iona and Glacia usually take care of most of the challengers before they get to me. It's just, you're so strong, and I didn't want to lose and let anyone down. I just wanted to do well, and show the League that appointing me wasn't a mistake. So I panicked. I let the ghosts take over, and they must have laid a curse on you, and..."
She swallowed a sob.
"I'm so sorry."
Glacia shook her head, but her expression lost the characteristic edge it normally held. "What's done is done. In the end, you're both okay, and officially, the match wasn't technically illegally conducted, so..." She looked to Steven. "The victory counts." But victory was far from Steven's mind, as he watched Phoebe swipe away some stray tears with a hiccup.
"I'm sorry. This isn't very becoming of a member of the Elite Four."
"Phoebe, I don't blame you." She hiccuped again at the sound of Steven's voice.
"Huh?"
"What happened in our battle, I know it wasn't on purpose." Armaldo rumbled in agreement from his side. "And I can't say I know much about how the League works, but if I were your superior, I wouldn't demote you just for losing one battle." Phoebe sniffed.
"Really?"
"You're an incredibly strong and talented trainer. You wouldn't be here otherwise. Besides, 2 other elites already lost today, too. He hadn't meant it as a jab, but Iona's stifled laughter told him the sour look on Glacia's face was directed at him. Wincing mentally, he quickly continued before Glacia could interject. Although, after our battle, I can only imagine what's in store for me in the next chamber. This time, though, Glacia did butt in. You'll be fine, she very nearly grumbled. Don't give me that dumb look. Believe it or not, I'm actually glad to see someone who will finally be able to put Simon in his place. Simon? Stephen still was unsure how Glacia could be so certain of his next battle's outcome. If I told you it's the same Simon that used to run the Slateport gym, would you believe me then? A look of understanding washed over Stephen's face as it dawned on him. The former poison-type gym. Glacia smirked as she watched his expression change. We brought him on to help train Phoebe. He had said something about mastering the tricky nature of dark-type moves, but I think he made that all up in order to get out of Slateport. The old git never leaves his chamber, let alone try to teach Phoebe anything. He probably took the offer just to have another notch on his training belt before he retires. He just sits and swaps war stories with Drake all day. Glacia huffed and crossed her arms. Those are probably all lies, too. Like I said, you'll be fine. Iona cleared her throat with a nervous glance at the way Glacia silently fumed with her dislike of the 4th elite before addressing Stephen. Unfortunately, we really can't grant you any extra time to rest before your next match, even though things went a bit haywire. League rules, she finished with an apologetic shrug. Armaldo rumbled a sarcastic noise, but Stephen shook his head. I understand. He thumbed through the 5 remaining revives in his pocket and nodded. His heart finally didn't feel like it was going to beat out of his chest. We'll be fine. Iona smiled and nodded in return, and Glacia joined in the sentiment with a hand on her hip. Then good luck, trainer. Deftly, he returned Armaldo to its ball and set off toward the door at the far end of the chamber.
Wait!
Phoebe's voice called out behind him, and Stephen turned.
Here, as an apology for what happened.
She handed him 2 berries, both hard and pod-like, with an orange tint to their leathery casing.
These are Aka berries, and I think you'll find them useful against the champion.
He nodded and looked up to find Phoebe staring at him, suddenly looking very serious.
Good luck. If anyone can do it, it's you.
The way she had said it so earnestly caught him by surprise, but the weight that had been resting in his chest seemed to lighten, and for the first time, he allowed his thoughts to stray to the what if. He'd taken on lightning speed, icy strength, and ghosts that had tried to kill him, and he'd made it through. They were past the halfway point, and if the elite's vote of confidence was any indication, he was one short battle away from the final hurdle. Stealing his gaze, he brushed a hand along the Pokeballs at his hip, before pushing the chamber doors wide and striding through to the hallway beyond. It has long been shown that the best aspects of trainer and Pokemon arise in the heat of battle. Champion-caliber trainers are few and far between, but those that are worthy will rise to the occasion and claim their place in Pokemon League history.